Last night concluded the first VP debate, and likely last of all debates before the 2024 presidential election, which is only 33 days away. Leading up to the debate, there was the mass shooting in Tel Aviv, moments before Iran launched a missile attack on Israel. The state of the Middle East, and indeed the world, with Biden-Harris leading the free world, has not been so disaster-ridden for decades. Meanwhile, America is reeling and mourning as Hurricane Helene claimed more than 150 lives. With catastrophe in the background, Trump's VP pick, J.D. Vance, faced off with sitting Vice President Kamala Harris's VP pick, the Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. Would we have a fact-checking fiasco like last time? Well, apparently the moderators agreed to no fact-checking. Not that they stuck with that.
Governor, and just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret, the rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check.
At times, Governor Tim Walz looked like a deer in headlights.
Persuade one another. Persuade one another. Persuade one another.
But in this video, we're going to take a closer look at three topics from the debate, which are crucial to the election: censorship, illegal immigration, and voter registration. We'll have a look at how the BBC fact-checkers, BBC Verify, themselves propagated misinformation whilst fact-checking the debate. And is Elon Musk right that the Democrats are importing voters? This shocking new Gallup poll may give us the answers to that question. But first, the important question of free speech in America. J.D. Vance and Tim Walz clashed over the issue last night.
But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds. That is a threat to democracy that will long outlive this present political moment.
Now, if you've been following this show, you will know that free speech has been under attack in America for some time. Be it the Hunter Biden laptop story, COVID origins, vaccines, counter-narratives, the establishment have betrayed the spirit, if not the word, of the First Amendment time and again. And it's not just Biden, Harris, and Walz who promote censorship. Here is former Democrat Secretary of State John Kerry speaking recently at a WEF Sustainable Development Impact meeting.
But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton had this to say.
But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
Now, if that's the case, then Hillary seems to be advocating that she herself should be criminally charged for propagating Russiagate.
Aid one another.
On the issue of censorship, friend of the show, Michael Schellenberger, recently reported this. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are financing censorship, election interference, and the persecution of me and other journalists in Brazil. Here's more from Michael Schellenberger.
Now, my colleagues and I have discovered that the United States government agencies, including the FBI and known intermediaries with the CIA, have been funding pro-censorship advocacy and advising the Brazilian government on how to engage in censorship.
There is a fight back against censorship, and it seems to be coalescing around Trump's transition team of RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and others. At Sunday's Rescue the Republic event in D.C., veteran investigative journalist Matt Taibbi made a speech that quickly went viral.
And to all those snoops and nosy Parkers sitting in their Homeland Security-funded centers of excellence, telling us day after day we must think as they say and vote as they say, or else we're traitorous, Putin-loving fascists and enablers of dangerous disinformation. Motherfucker, I'm an American.
Aid one another.
That shit doesn't work on us.
At the same event, RFK said this about Democrat censorship.
Hillary Clinton, Tim Walz, and Kamala Harris all said the same thing. They said that if the Democrats get back into office, that they are going to make sure that misinformation and disinformation is censored. They said that the First Amendment, they were specifically talking about Elon Musk, and they said that they were going to teach him at the First Amendment is a privilege, not a right.
Tim Walz reiterated this in the VP debate last night.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the test. That's the Supreme Court test.
Censorship is an important issue, and the depths of government censorship were exposed in the Twitter files. We are told by Democrats again and again that democracy is on the ballot on November 5th. But they seem to have forgotten that democracy without free speech is not democracy. Even BBC Verify, the BBC supervisors of misinformation, have themselves been spreading misinformation about the VP debate. But more on that later. On the topic of mainstream media bias, let's see how the mainstream media reacted to last night's debate.
Vance won this debate. They were talking, at one point, Vance wanted to correct something about how Haitians got into this country. And he was right, and the moderators wouldn't let him correct it. It's very interesting.
But at the beginning, the two issues driving the campaign right now are Harris has a big deficit on the economy, Harris has a big deficit on immigration, and Republicans were happy tonight and Democrats a little bit nervous that on those two issues, Vance carried it.
J.D. Vance is much more experienced at this, at public speaking, at defending himself, at pivoting.
So reasonably positive for the Republican candidate J.D. Vance, although it seems MSNBC had a mini meltdown.
Stop it. Stop. Are you effing kidding me? And they should have dropped that F-bomb, right?
Aid one another.
I mean, they should have just, this is the debate. This may be the only chance people have to see the difference.
During the debate, Walz bloviated about visiting China during the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just... That's what I've said.
Now, to be fair to our Timmy, he does seem to have a tendency for misspeaking. He claimed last night that he was friends with school shooters.
So I've become friends with school shooters.
Aid one another.
Let's have a closer look at how the media is covering this. Raw Story published this headline. Tim Walz was off 2 months about where he was 35 years ago, seemingly downplaying Walz's filibustering and excusing his lies. If this had been J.D. Vance, I'm sure he wouldn't have been given the same treatment. Now let's use Ground News to see how the rest of the media is covering it. We specifically asked them to partner with us because their app and website has allowed me and my team to quickly see through the media bias on any story in the news cycle. Hundreds of articles were published on the debate worldwide, and we can access every single one on Ground News with context on each source. Now, right-leaning New York Post wrote this headline. Tim Walz repeatedly made false claims he was in Hong Kong during Tiananmen Square massacre. A starkly different narrative to the previous reading from the left-leaning Raw Story. Seeing all sides, regardless of political lean, is important in making informed decisions and having more productive cross-aisle conversations, especially coming up to the election in November. Which is why I appreciate that you can follow not only breaking news on each candidate and key issues, but also blind spot stories that are disproportionately covered. I believe in what Ground News is doing, and I encourage you to check it out by scanning the QR code or go to ground.news/Winston. If you subscribe through my link, you'll save 40% off unlimited access. Ground News is subscriber funded, and by supporting my sponsors, you're supporting this show. But now for a closer look at the important issue of immigration in America, one of the most important issues of this 2024 presidential election. Last night, J.D. Vance made the claim that there were 25 million illegals in America.
25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices in the country.
BBC Verify, the fact-checking arm of the BBC, were giddy to jump on this. BBC Verify claimed that there were no reports of more than 12 million illegal immigrants in America. BBC Verify linked to several reports, including that of the Office of Homeland Security earlier this year, estimating the number of illegal immigrants living in the US as of January 2022 was 11 million. They also linked to Pew Research Center of an estimate of 11 million in the same year. They also cited the Nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute, estimating there were about 11.3 million undocumented immigrants in the US in 2021. And conservative think tank, the Center for Immigration Studies, estimated there were approximately 12 million in May 2023. But there is evidence that there are far more than 12 million illegals.
Aid one another.
Which BBC Verify conveniently, though predictably, ignored. According to the bipartisan outlet The Hill, the number of illegal immigrants in the country has roughly doubled under President Biden. The United States had some 10.2 million illegal immigrants in 2020, and another 10 million have entered during Biden's presidency. The Hill goes on to report, according to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, the Border Patrol had some 8.5 million illegal immigrant encounters from 2021 through November 2023. Besides the 8.5 million encounters, there are those who entered the US illegally with the express intent of avoiding detection. Estimates put that number at 1.7 million quote-unquote gotaways over the past 3 years, which gives us the 10 million estimate. Of course, those numbers are estimates. No one can be sure of the actual number, especially since many here illegally do their best not to be detected. Whatever the real number, it is larger than ever and growing quickly. There has been a dramatic rise in illegal immigration under the Biden-Harris administration.
Aid one another.
And here is Democrat Congressman Robert Garcia bravely explaining the data.
But I just think this chart is important for us to actually look at this and actually be accurate. Right now it says that Trump left office at this point in the chart. That's actually not when Donald Trump left office. Donald Trump actually left office right here on this chart. And you can see that the actual immigration and what's happening with border crossings was already going up by the time Donald Trump left office.
Robert Garcia is correct to be very accurate about when exactly Trump left office, never mind what happened after.
A new era of immigration in the U.S. is kicking off with all-time high illegal border crossings.
This year, Border Patrol agents have seen record numbers of migrants crossing into the U.S. along the southwest border.
And now to the immigration crisis at the southern border. Record numbers of children are crossing into the U.S. without a parent or guardian.
Aid one another.
Now, in last night's VP debate, Tim Walz said that Trump made Republicans turn down a bipartisan immigration bill.
But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it because it gives him a campaign issue.
This was a reference to the Schumer-Lankford border deal from earlier this year, revived again in the summer. Democrats say that Trump deliberately turned against the bill because he wanted it to be a campaign issue. But let's look at some of its details. Increased green cards by $50,000 a year, work permits for adult children of H-1B holders, immediate work permits to every illegal alien released from custody, taxpayer-funded lawyers to certain UACs and mentally incompetent aliens, 5,000 migrants per day allowed into U.S., and restricts parole for those who enter without authorization between ports of entry. So it could be, in fact, that it was a terrible bill. But to the question of criminality amongst illegal immigrants. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, recently released a report of the scale of crime committed by illegal immigrants in the U.S. today. As investigative reporter Michael Schellenberger reported on a letter sent by Patrick J. Leckleitner, who is acting director of ICE, to Congressman Tony Gonzalez. Schellenberger wrote on X, "No matter your politics, these new numbers are shocking. Of the 7 million migrants that ICE released while their cases are being processed, 663,000 have criminal histories. 13,000 were convicted of homicide, 16,000 of sexual assault, and another 1,845 face homicide charges. There are famous examples of victims of this crime. Take, for example, Laken Riley. But it's hard to fathom the scale and what it means. Broadcaster Greg Gutfeld made these stirring comments after hearing the report.
I wanted to see if it was reported elsewhere. You know, it couldn't find it on MSNBC, CNN, Drudge. You have the release of hundreds of thousands of foreign criminals, like they emptied the jails. Nothing about what is easily one of the most big, probably the biggest crime story I've ever seen. Now, even if these numbers are off by 50%, please, I think that the fact checkers should fact check it. You know, tell us, no, it's not 16,000 rapists. It's only 8,000. It's only 7,000 murders. Cool. I'm glad you're okay with that. I'll take your fact check. This is a huge story. Where is it?
Tied closely to the issue of illegal immigration is, of course, voting and voter ID. The Democrats, the same party that were demanding everyone have vaccine passports and IDs to travel, are now demanding that there shouldn't be voting ID in elections. Last week, Governor Newsom bans California from requiring ID to vote. But this ban won't be coming into effect until January 1st, 2025. At the same time, the LA Times reported this on September 26th. With an election looming, the US is approving citizenship applications at the fastest speed in years. But this begs the question, why? Well, a recent Gallup poll revealed the party voter registration changes from November 2020 to July 2024. The Gallup poll revealed that the Republican Party gained 393,000 new party voters. The Democrats, by comparison, lost 3.5 million party voters. Meanwhile, independents increased by 1.8 million. Even the left-wing outlet, the Daily Beast, ran the headline, "First time ever, more Americans are Republican than Democrat."
Aid one another.
When it comes to voter ID, Elon Musk, for one, is certainly worried. He took to X, writing, "Look at the law that was passed yesterday in California making it illegal to ask for ID when voting. It is harder to buy something at Costco than vote. This is insane." But everything is insane in California. It was only last month that a new bill was brought in to ban political parody when Governor Gavin Newsom took umbrage with this parody video.
I, Kamala Harris, and your Democrat candidate for president. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist.
Just as he's worried about voter ID, Elon Musk was also worried about censorship in California, that this will happen nationwide if Dem big government machine is given another 4 years, as sure as night follows day. So where does that leave us? Tim Walz and the Democrats are unapologetically calling for more censorship and infringing on the First Amendment. Curiously, voter ID is being phased out for the first time ever, just as more Americans identify as Republican rather than Democrat. And despite what the Democrat establishment like to think, the crime statistics from illegal immigrants, as published by ICE, reveal a worrying state of affairs in America. But at least we can rely on the mainstream media spreading misinformation. Good old BBC Verify. We will continue to cover the presidential election on this show, and we will be coming out to the states for the election. So let me know which guests you like on the show and which topics you'd like me to cover. That's all from me, but until next time, be well.